Hey guys, welcome back to the internet. It's pretty stormy outside, so it's time to get cozy inside and just listen to some stories. But first, we have a Craigslist ad. Great opportunity to squire for a fitness pro. Briefly speaking, I have 175 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal with an 8-pack. Rock hard glutes, and stellar physical and intellectual features. If you make the final interview round, I will provide you with my weightlifting stats. As squire, your responsibilities will include, but are not limited to, filming and photographing me before, during, and immediately after workouts. Film school background is a plus, preferably from a top 20 film school. Spotting me during workouts, prior lifting experience required. Defending my workout space. Scouting out new talent, you know what I mean. Responding to boy, squire, and any other name I see fit. Your pay will not be monetary. What you will gain from this position is more valuable than money. You will be entitled to use the workouts you see me perform, and ask me for advice once a week. Other benefits include ability to be seen with a local fitness legend, girls I'm not interested in, and other valuable things money cannot buy. The next steps, I will be reviewing resumes until 3/14/16. I will contact you if I deem you worthy of a final interview. If I do not contact you, it means you kind of suck. Sorry. Maybe next lifetime. Well guys, we have reached peak narcissism. I don't think we'll see another person more full of themselves in this lifetime. You know, I wonder if people actually put on this, narcissistic personality as an act, thinking if you're assertive enough and you act like you're in charge, then people will follow you. I just can't really picture the type of person who would find interest in this. I'm not even sure that kind of person exists. But alright, let's read some stories now. Fools, why don't you sell your rivals' products? A long time ago, in a southern English village, far, far away. In my pre-university days, back in the early 90s, I worked weekends at a small supermarket whose name rhymed with Late Rose. I had many odd encounters while there, with both customers and my often eccentric colleagues. So one sunny Saturday, a well-heeled gent approached me. He says, "Excuse me, where would I find the Tusco crisps?" I say, in Tusco, sir." He says, "What? Haven't you got any in stock?" I say, "I'm afraid not, sir. The only place you can get Tusco own brand crisps is, well, Tusco." So he's getting a tad fractious. "That's utter rubbish. You can get them anywhere, and if you don't sell them, you should. They're far better than your own brand crisps." Spoiler, they were the same crisps in a different bag, but you don't tell customers that. "I assure you, sir, shops' own brand crisps, or, indeed, any other brand goods, are only ever sold in those actual shops." So he leans up close to my face and stage whispers, "You just don't want a rival making a profit in your shop. It's pathetic, and that's why Tusco will be putting you out of business. If you don't start selling Tusco products, everyone will go to Tusco to get them. Then you'll be sorry." With that, he stood back, grabbed a multi-pack of Late Rose crisps, made a strange attempt at a smug face, or he might have had trapped wind, and strode off, presumably in search of some Sainsbury's digestives. I just shook my head and went back to pricing some tins with my pricing gun, which I was ace at. I was quite upset when the sticky price labels went the way of the dinosaur. It's pretty funny when customers go into a store and they just start berating employees about higher up business decisions, and they're just like, "Dude, I'm just paid to stock the shelves. I don't decide what goes on the shelves. That child is not of my household." Okay, so way back in 1998, I was working for a call center company whose main business was from other companies outsourcing their customer service to this company. For example, if you called the 1-800 number on the back of a box of Jell-O or Kraft mac and cheese, your call would be answered by someone at my company who worked at the particular project. My project was the benefits department for a telecommunications company. We handled enrollments and changes to their employees' health insurance, life insurance, dental, etc. So one day, a manager called in. You could always tell when it was a manager because they would have you on speakerphone, like they were doing you a favor by squeezing you in on their busy schedule. This particular employee wanted to add his newborn son to his health insurance. I congratulated him, added the child in the system, went through the standard spiel about how the coverage worked, and advised him that he would be receiving a confirmation letter in the mail in about 7 to 10 business days. At this point, he asked if I could send the letter to his P.O. box instead. I said, sure, and put the address in the alternate field. What I did not know at the time was that the system would send a letter to both addresses. So fast forward about 2 weeks. I'm taking calls, and I get a call from a lady who tells me that she is not the employee. Her husband is the employee, and she had a question about the coverage. No problem, as we were allowed to disclose such info to spouses. She gave me a social security number, and it sounded familiar. While the system pulled up the info, I asked her how I could assist her. She says, "Well, we received a letter of confirmation about our child's health insurance, and we don't have a new baby." I say, "Okay, no problem, let me just check the system." By this time, the system had pulled up the information, and lo and behold, it was the same guy that had called 2 weeks prior to add his new child. So I confirmed that the employee had called in on such and such date to add the new child, named David, born on such and such date, etc. What followed was the coldest that I have ever heard someone speak in my life up to that point. She says, "That child is not of my household, and I want it removed from our insurance immediately." I say, "Not of your household? What do you mean?" "Oh, yep, you guessed it. The husband had had a child with his mistress, added him to the coverage, and tried to end run around his wife finding out, which failed miserably due to how our system worked. I had to explain to her, in the calmest way possible, that since her husband was the employee and had added the child, he would have to call to remove the child. She assured me that he would be calling back, thanked me for my help, and hung up. I had to take myself out of the call queue for a few minutes to compose myself. As I did so, I heard hysterical laughter coming from the office at the end of the row of cubicles. A few minutes later, my supervisor's manager came down and asked me about the call. Apparently they had been monitoring it for quality assurance, and it was the funniest thing he had heard to date. You know, we've had a few interesting stories lately of guys who've been caught cheating in very unusual ways. I guess that's what happens when people just get a little bit too cocky with themselves. Entitled Karen files a baseless lawsuit, ultimately ends up paying thousands in legal fees. This story is from a few years ago when I worked in the legal department of a 1,000-plus store national retailer. As part of my job, I handled customers' complaints that elevated when the customer threatened legal action. So our customer service call center forwarded an entitled mom's call to me after she threatened legal action. Entitled mom left a message claiming that she was not provided $10 in customer rewards coupons. Spend $200, receive a $10 coupon in the mail, sort of thing. This was before apps. Based on her purchase of clothing for her son and her daughter for back to school. I looked into it and called the entitled mom back. It turned out we had an old address associated with her rewards account. No big deal, right? I spoke with the entitled mom and offered to send her the original $10 coupon and an additional $25 for her trouble to the correct address. That did not satisfy her. She claimed we should have known about her address and threatened to sue us if we didn't pay her $1,000 in cash. Her rationale was that it would cost us at least $1,000 to defend the suit. She was in a state in which our company did not have any offices, so we should just pay it to her. I declined, but still forwarded her the $10 coupon she was entitled to pursuant to our rewards program. Sure enough, she sued us for a breach of contract, fraud, and any other conceivable charge. I went to my boss, the COO, and told him the story. He asked what I wanted to do. I said I'd rather pay the legal fees to a defense attorney than pay the entitled mom, and he agreed. I contacted our attorney, explained the situation to him, and I crap you not, he said, in a southern drawl, "I get to sue this lady? I should be paying you guys." There are a lot of lawyers in this legal community who would love to sue her, as she is reckless, unpleasant, and a total pain in the butt to deal with. I'll gladly take your case. He agreed to defend us at a reduced rate. Part of our defense strategy was to countersue her under the state's frivolous lawsuit statute, which would move the suit from a small claims court to the larger civil court. Our attorney filed our answer and counterclaim. Although the entitled mom was an attorney, she was not a defense attorney, so she had to engage her own attorney to defend against the counterclaim. After a couple of hearings, she offered to settle for no more money exchanged. She didn't even get the extra $25 coupon I offered her, and the dismissal of both suits. I talked with our attorney about continuing our claim, but he advised it would probably be worth settling and being done with it rather than being vindictive. Although vindictive would have been fun, courts tend to not like that, so I agreed. My company ended up paying our attorney $900 in attorney fees. He later called and told us that the attorney the entitled mom engaged charged her $1,700 to defend the suit. Although I would have liked to continue with our suit, I think her having to pay $1,700 over a $10 coupon sent to the wrong address is sufficient justice. You know, I don't really know much about lawsuits in general. I've never been involved in any on either side, but it's really good to know that just because somebody says that they're going to sue someone for like some stupid reason, that it doesn't always work out so well for them. Neighbor tells Gramps he should mind his own business. That advice cost the neighbor most of his yard and a car. Gramps had just moved into a retainment park with a lot that backed up to county land that was a nature preserve. His backyard was basically non-existent, but he didn't mind as he got to look out over the preserve. However, he did marvel at how his next-door neighbor's backyard ended a good 8 foot past his, giving neighbor a nice space back there. Gramps tried to be friendly with all his new neighbors, exchanging phone numbers and the like, and one day he noticed the next-door neighbor was putting down expensive pavers that extended from his back door all the way to the old fence posts that designated the preserve boundary. Gramps watched the neighbor yank the 3 rickety fence posts out of the ground and move them back an extra 2 feet into the preserve before pounding them back in, then started to clear the land, intending to gain himself more area for his pavers. Gramps used to work for the National Park Service as a young lad, so he thought he had better warn his neighbor of the consequences of his actions. So he heads out for a little chat. The neighbor is immediately defensive, and before Gramps says much, the neighbor tells him, "You're new here. I've been here 10 years," and to mind your own darn business. Gramps decides not to press the issue. Nothing happens that year, but the following year, when most of the park emptied out to head north for the summer, the county comes back to check on the preserve. Gramps notices them going back and forth behind his neighbor's house. The workers are pulling out maps and taking photos and making phone calls, and soon more guys show up. Turns out the neighbor has moved the posts several times over the years, and in reality, his backyard is supposed to be even smaller than Gramps' backyard. To make it worse, the neighbor put pavers in the back specifically to park both his golf cart and a cherry red sports car back there for the summer, so the county would have to move them before they could do anything else. They tape a notice to the front door and leave. Gramps goes over to read it, and it states that the neighbor was in violation of encroaching onto protected lands. He has 30 days to move his car, tear up the pavers, and pay a fine of $11,000 because of the damage to the endangered species who inhabited the protected lands, as well as trespassing fees. Failure to do so within 30 days will result in golf cart and car being towed and impounded. Pavers will be dug up and carted off at the neighbor's expense, and the fine will increase for every additional day past the deadline. 30 days comes and goes, so a week after that, Gramps has quite the show as the first car and cart were towed. Pavers were dug up and hauled off, and the old fence posts and ropes were replaced with metal posts embedded into buried cement bases, connected by steel cables. The whole process took several weeks to finish, but the preserve looked a lot more legit when they were done. A few solar cameras were installed so the county could monitor the wildlife, and encroachers, remotely. Meanwhile, more notices were taped to the front door of the neighbor's house. By November, the snowbirds were flooding back into the park, including the neighbor. That was Gramps' second show of the summer, as neighbors read all the notices, digging down until he reads the first one, then runs out back and starts screaming and cussing up a storm before running back to his car to dig out his cell phone so he can call the county to find out where his car and golf cart were. Gramps stays indoors to avoid the guy as he is frantically trying to unload his car, turn on his water and electricity, get the AC and toilets going, and all the while trying to get someone at the county to pick up the phone and give him some answers. He finally gets a live person and proceeds to scream at them while on speakerphone about his car and cart. So the call keeps getting kicked to other people because who wants to help a screamer? Basically, the neighbor is told to come to the county office to get this straightened out. 3 days later, the neighbor catches Gramps outside and asks if he was here when the county stole his car and destroyed his backyard. Gramps said he was, and the neighbor says, "Well, why didn't you call me when you saw them putting notices on my door? You had my number up north." Gramps said he had thought about doing that, but figured the neighbor would prefer him to mind his own darn business. So he decided against it. Well, I don't know what he expected. If you're gonna do stupid stuff and break the rules, you're gonna get caught. Well, now we have the question, what did you learn embarrassingly late? You know when the doctor hits your knee to check your reflexes? I honestly thought you were supposed to kick your leg up high, like you felt it and you kick. It wasn't until I was 23 and moved to another country and had to do a physical that the doctor was like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, it's just like, "I thought you just wanted me to let you know that I could feel it." When I was 20, I was presented with a really wonderful promotion. It required me to fly to a nearby state for a week of training. I was super ecstatic about the whole thing, until I remembered a friend of mine complaining about her struggles with getting a passport. So I promptly declined the promotion. My superiors were really stumped as to why I turned down the promotion. I say, "Unfortunately, I don't have a passport." The manager just says, "You've never flown before, have you?" I say, "No, I have not." He says, "You don't need a passport to fly within the country." And then it hit me. My friend was going to Mexico. I was just going to a neighboring state. Once the realization hit, my superiors all erupted in laughter. The story itself followed me when I went into training. My trainer personally greeted me and asked if I had any difficulties getting a passport before laughing. I'm mostly just surprised you got all the way to the age of 20, presumably without ever leaving your state. Have you ever been on a vacation before? I thought an orgasm and an organism were the same thing. I gave an entire speech to my class at 13 years old, first month at a new school, about how I wanted to be a marine biologist and work with marine orgasms. Everyone was laughing and I didn't know why. The teacher didn't say anything, just laughed along as well. A girl I'd just made friends with had to fill me in after class. Turns out, they are definitely not the same thing. Well, they're both nouns, and they're spelled similarly, but that's about as far as the similarities go. I was convinced cheese grew on bushes till 12 to 13 years old. My brother is really proud of this. Cheese does not grow on bushes, they grow on cows. I thought buffaloes were birds, and buffalo wings were from said birds. Yeah, with buffaloes having all those wings, they sure don't fly too good. Glass objects should not be put in the stove. Guess how I learned that? How'd you learn that? I want to know. I hope you also learned right after that not to put metal bowls in the microwave. That you can actually perform maintenance on a lawnmower, i.e. oil changes, and not just buy a new one every few years. I moved a lot growing up, and as a result, we didn't always hang on to large appliances. So I was like 21 before I learned lawnmowers aren't basically disposable. I'm sure there are people who take this even a step further, and they'll buy things and be like, well, it's out of gas, I guess it's time to get a new one. You know, I usually give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to learning things later in life. I mean, I've said this before, but it's like, there are probably a million different things that are seen as just like common knowledge, so it only makes sense that some things will just slip through the cracks for some people. Not every person is going to know every single bit of, just general knowledge, I think. And not every person's gonna know that the internet is real, but at least we get to imagine it. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good weekend. In my recent videos, I've been having fun with all the cat clips. At the very start of yesterday's, how she did the yawn and stretch thing. If you play that clip in really slow motion, just frame by frame, it looks really funny. But here's some more Faye.
I don't think I want to do that right now. Okay, let's see. Belmont Ancients. Telling the Darnassus. Okay. I need to do this too. What the